Hi, guys, and welcome to Wealth Waves. I'm your host, Sergio Davids, and joining me is Charlie Sharalambis, head of IBs at CM Trading. How are you doing today, Charlie?
I'm very well, thank you, Sergio. How are you?
Very, very good. You know, it's springtime here in South Africa, flowers in bloom. I am looking forward to some much deserved leave. So, yeah, all good, man.
Fantastic. Great. That's good to
Cool,
hear.
cool. So, Charlie, today I wanted to pick your brain about an article I read talking about the five biggest challenges facing small businesses.
Okay.
So I thought I'd run through the list and then we can, go through point by point. So kicking things off is client dependence. Number two, money management. Number three, fatigue. Four, founder dependence. And five, balancing quality and growth. So to
Okay.
start things off, we've got client dependence, and basically they framed it as if a single client makes up more than half of your income, you are more an independent contractor than a business owner. What are
Right.
your
Okay.
thoughts?
Can I ask a question first?
Go for
What's
it.
number two? Money management. What does that
Management,
mean?
yeah, yeah. Oh, so basically, do you have enough cash to cover the bills is a must for any business, especially if you're, an individual. So trying to figure out what your, needs are for this business and how to grow is a skill that not many first-time businesses have.
Yeah. All right. I think one and two
Yeah.
are round about the same sort of thing.
Okay.
Um, because how you described client dependence. You've got one
Yeah.
big account, or you've got your first client. It's going to make up all
Right.
your income. Um, the technical definition, are you contracting, or are you truly a business? That's there for tax reasons. um, it's not specifically identifying whether you've got a business, but let's face it, you've got an idea. The biggest
Right.
challenge that anybody has with any business is that either they don't have the capital or they run out of money,
Okay.
because people overestimate what they're going to do in the first year and underestimate what they can achieve in 5 years. And the biggest challenge to any startup business is purely a lack of capital, which is
Um,
the
but
reason,
okay,
therefore, that they.
when you say capital, what do you mean for a small-time
Right.
business owner?
Okay. You need funding. You need revenue into that business. You need sales. You need whatever it might be defined as. A business
Right.
needs income. So, for example, there are two types of businesses that you could set up: a physical business whereby, like a restaurant or whatever it might be, where you need premises, you need equipment, you need etc. And you need produce to go out there to get customers in, and you need to have this outlay before you even do anything. Okay. Or you
Yeah.
can have a lot of nowadays, you can have an online business, which is cheaper, but it's not cheap. It's not cheap to create a presence online. So fundamentally, you know, either way,
Yeah.
you need capital behind you to invest. If you've got a product, you've got to produce it.
I think.
And the
Yeah.
sample size of production is obviously a lot more expensive,
I think. Yeah.
based on how many you order. So
I, th-
capital is the key.
I was I was thinking like it's easy to think of your costs, when you've got, how can I say, either like a retail or tactile business. I'm gonna make X amount of muffins each day, so that's gonna cost me,
Hmm.
I've got staff, I need to buy ingredients, etc. But I think
Yeah,
especially for people who work from home, there are other costs that you need to consider.
of
There's
course.
your Wi-Fi costs, there's your physical equipment, there's, you
Create a
need
website, costs
to
money.
create a website, that's going to cost. Running
Create
that
a
website,
product.
maintaining that
Yeah.
website, your
What are
online
you
presence, it
selling?
costs. And
Yeah.
even if it doesn't cost you, physical, how can I say,
Rent
currency, there's your
rates.
time,
That's it. Yep.
you know. So you've also got to
Well,
have
you're running
some
your own
time management.
business. Yeah, you're running your own business, so therefore your time, you're not really going to pay yourself first of all.
Yeah.
But let's imagine, for argument's sake, I want to set up a business. Your first thing is to get yourself ready to offer the product to the general public or your customers, identifying who your customers are, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah.
But that needs cash flow, and the issue is, where do you go today to get funding for a business? You either go to your bank, but banks are not going to lend that easily based on a business
Yeah.
plan.
Yeah.
They're not going to give you the capital required. You either have to save it up yourself, okay, or alternatively, if it's a potential viable business, you've got to go away and give equity away to a venture capitalist who in return
Right.
will give you money, but they'll want half your business.
Exactly.
So,
Or maybe you've got
as I
a
said,
rich uncle or some family.
exactly, or an inheritance. But either way, the reason why businesses fail is a lack of clarity in the direction and what's required, and as I said, an overestimation of what can be achieved. Okay, because people think about what they think the client needs as opposed to genuinely finding out what the client wants.
Yeah.
Okay, and therefore they run out of They run out of capital. It's
So,
like
yeah.
it's like this analogy. Everyone, if you ask them, the majority of people will say that they're a better than average driver, but they're not, because it mathematically doesn't make sense. And it's the same here. They always think, I've got an idea, people will want this, but they don't do their research to find out. So therefore, inevitably, what happens when they're not making sales, the costs accumulate, and then they run out of money. So the biggest challenge there is, bar none, to any business, irrespective of whether you patent your product or whether you structure it in such a way, is you run out of money, because the bigger you grow, the more you delegate in order to create time, because you can leverage on time through independent expertise and people. Okay,
Yeah.
You've got running costs, you've got property costs, you've got staff costs, you've got technology costs, you've got regulatory costs, you've got so many different costs. You've got accountancy costs, you've got banking fees. You run out of money. Businesses run out of money. And that's why you see a place open and 6 months to a year later, it shuts.
Yeah.
Because they don't make the sales.
Yeah. Moving on to number 3, we've got fatigue.
Yeah.
And they've outlined it
Yeah.
here, the hours, the work, and the constant pressure to perform, can grind
Pressure.
on many individuals and cause a lot of pressure and burnout. I think a lot of people, when they're starting their own businesses, don't realize that you're going to put a lot longer hours into your business than one of your employees. Everything's on you.
It is. It is. But it's how do you handle the pressure associated with that very thing we just discussed? The concept of running out of money.
I think that would weigh heavily on a lot of people, and a lot of people aren't prepared for that kind of pressure.
Mm-hmm. No, because it's very easy to think, as I said, it comes down to that one issue. People overestimate what they can achieve in 12 months.
Mm.
And therefore, when they get that surprise, okay, they're not prepared for it. Whether they're mentally not resilient, or more importantly, the big picture is not big enough to stimulate the appropriate response to that pressure. Because when you apply pressure on people, people do one of two things. They either focus or they fold. And unfortunately, most people fold.
Yeah, I think once fatigue sets in, you're going to, it's going to lead to a whole bunch of rash decisions about your business. Yeah. You might even abandon it altogether.
Exactly. And what happens is, rather than one of the most important aspects of working a plan, and I say that because you don't have to just be running a business to have a plan, is having the intuition and the insight to know when to make an adjustment to that plan in order to repoint you back into the direction that you need to be on. Sometimes there's a perseverance for the sake of perseverance, rather than thinking, actually, this isn't working the way we need. We need to make a change. Do you understand what I mean? They don't have the insight or they don't acknowledge that there's a problem. One of the biggest problems with alcoholics is they don't accept they're alcoholics.
Yeah, they can handle his drink. What's the problem?
Yeah, exactly. So here's the same issue.
So moving on to number 4. It's
Yeah.
called founder dependence. This is quite interesting. I think they've outlined it here that, you're the primary stakeholder of your business. So can you afford to operate without yourself being on the line? For instance, what if you are suddenly in hospital? Can your business still produce income on the day?
Yeah.
It's an interesting, point.
Yeah. It is interesting thing. Someone once said to me back, showed my age here, in the early 90s.
Yeah.
Um, and this was a really successful chap in his industry at the time. And we were having a conversation about business. And he said to me something that, because at that time I'd worked all the year round, was getting fatigued, was driving the team forward in order to achieve the results. And he said to me, "Where are you going on holiday?" And I said, "Well, I don't think I'm going to take a holiday." And he said to me, "You should." I go, "Why? Why'd you say that?" He goes, "Not only because you're going to burn out, but then you find out the state of your business." I go, "What do you mean?" And he said, "If you go away for 3 to 4 weeks and your business doesn't continue to run, okay, you don't have a business."
Right.
And I thought about it, and I thought he's totally right. And ironically, what was interesting, I went away for 4 weeks that year, and my team did better than when I was away.
Well, that
Now,
just means you're
but
very good at delegating, Charlie.
or more importantly, here's the thing: client dependency. People find it difficult to delegate, and with the
Yeah.
responsibility of me not being there, I found that within my team I had mini leaders, because you need leaders at all levels. They came to the plate, and they put
They stepped
extra
up.
amount of work in. It stepped up to the plate. They had more responsibility, and that was the thing and actually that break, and I did it regularly from thereafter. They transitioned all of a sudden. It allowed me to delegate more responsibility, and we grew exponentially from there on. So you're totally right. Sometimes leaders, owners think that they got all the answers, but sometimes you've got to trust in your people, because you hired them for a reason.
Exactly.
And if you don't trust your people, why did you hire them?
Exactly. I think a lot of people have issues with, control and letting go.
Yes.
And finally, moving on to number 5, balancing quality and growth. They've outlined it here that, even when a business is not founder dependent, there comes a time when the issues from growth seem to match or even outweigh the benefits. So how do you balance, your quality of your product or your services versus, the growing needs of a business?
I think it's about identifying the quality that you want.
Right.
Number one. I think it's setting clear standards of your product that everybody buys into. Because if people don't know the quality, then how can you manage that quality? And then, if you think, I don't know how to verbalize this, but I'll give you a classic example. I bet it happens in South Africa too. How many up and coming businesses? Let's go back to restaurant chains.
I was about to say, I have an example with restaurants here.
Yeah, and you see them, and when they're privately owned by the people that form the business, they're fantastic.
Yep.
As soon as they become slightly successful, they're bought out by a fund or a corporate.
Or a chain.
Okay.
Yeah.
A chain, exactly. The whole group, the standards drop, because then it's not about persevering the standard by which that the leader wanted his product to be defined by. It becomes purely numbers, because the passion in the company that buys that company doesn't have that same vision, and therefore purely financial. And what do? They cut costs, and therefore standards drop.
Cut corners, cut quality.
Exactly. You can name you can name loads of restaurant chains that are like that. They were much better when they were privately owned.
One of my favorite, this was early 2000s. One of my favorite restaurants was this place called Fat Albert's. It was run by it's an Italian restaurant. It's run by a family, right? They ran it, and the dad, who was also the owner, he's behind the line, he's cooking. His wife, was hand making pasta. It was a awesome, authentic experience here in Cape Town. Obviously, they've gone on in years, and they decided to sort of chain out and set up a second location. And the primary location that I went to, the original one, was managed by, they got in a manager, and the food just wasn't the same. It lost that, its authenticity. It lost the spark. It was now just generic.
The love.
And then within, the love. And the love was their USP, their biggest selling point.
Yes.
And then within
Yeah.
about 6 months, they had a going out of sale. Everything must go. Please help save Fat Albert sale at a
Yeah.
restaurant of all places. And that was that. And then they also had to close the second restaurant because obviously they had incurred a lot of loans on the
Yeah.
primary location. It was just so sad because had they just stuck to their guns and delivered the one thing we wanted, which was quality,
Hmm.
rather than growth, they would have been around. Not that growth is a bad thing. Just if you're consistent with your quality, if you set up a second
Yeah.
location and it's just as good as the first, then you've nailed it.
Yes.
So
Totally agree.
what advice do you have for people that are worrying about, the quality of the service and trying to upscale, get more clients, etc.?
Remember what you stand for. Remember why you started it. And if you're gonna scale up, it's very clear that you have a culture within the organization that understands the standards that are defined. And then when you've got someone that you train up personally and you accept and you believe that they share your vision, okay, get them to run the second place or whatever. You've got to maintain the standards. If service is your standard, maintain it. If quality of food is your standard, maintain it. Whatever
Right.
it is, what is it that people love about your product? And they love about your product. What they love about your product is your reason for why you exist. And I think people lose clarity on it. But money's important, profit's important, but not at the
Sure.
behest of the standard of your
Yeah.
business.
Awesome. I think on that note, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much, Charlie, for
Okay,
all your awesome advice and insights.
no problem, no problem.
Cool. I'll see you on the next one.
All right,
Goodbye.
speak soon.